Nobody talks honestly about money and identity during career transitions. And I mean nobody. We will talk about strategy, we'll talk about networking, we will talk about updating your resume and positioning yourself for the next big thing. But the conversation that actually keeps leaders up at 2 a.m. during a career transition, the one where your sense of who you are is tangled so deeply with your compensation that you cannot tell where the paycheck ends and the person begins. That conversation stays silent. And that silence is expensive because when your income is your identity, every career move becomes a threat. Every transition feels like an existential crisis, not because the work is uncertain, because you're uncertain about who you are without the number attached to your name. I've spent 30 years working with leaders in exactly this position. I can tell you the leaders who navigate career transitions well are not the ones with the best financial plan. They're the ones who have untangled their identity from their income before the transition forces them to. In this video, I'm going to show you how that tangling happened. What is it actually costing you? And 5 specific practices to separate who you are from what you earn so that your next career move becomes the conviction, not compensation. Let's get into this. Here's how it happens, and it happens almost to everyone. So if this feels personal, well, that's because it is. You enter the workforce with fire. You want to make a difference, build something, contribute something real. And money is part of it. Of course it is. You want to be compensated well. That's healthy. It's completely normal. But somewhere along the way, the compensation stops being a reflection of your contribution and starts becoming the definition of your worth. The raise is not just more money, it's proof that you matter. The title is not just a role, it is evidence that you have arrived. The bonus is not just a reward, it is the scoreboard that tells you whether you're winning. Nobody taught you this. Nobody actually sat down and said, hey, your identity is now completely fueled with your compensation package. It happened gradually, year by year, review cycle by review cycle, until that number on the offer letter became the number that told you who you are. This is the standardization trap at work, and I've been calling it that for years. It's the system that conditions you to measure yourself by its metrics. And the primary metric it uses is money, not fulfillment, not impact, not conviction, money. And here's where this gets a bit dangerous. As long as the money keeps going up, the trap feels comfortable. You can ignore the gap between who you are and how you are measured because the measurement keeps validating you. But the moment a transition arrives, a layoff, a reorganization, perhaps a voluntary leap, a retirement from one chapter before the next, the measurement disappears. And without it, most leaders do not know who they are. See, that's the conviction deficit showing up in your bank account. Let me name this clearly because naming it is the first step out. I call it the identity trap. And it works like this. Over 15 or 20 years in an organization or an industry, you build a professional identity. And that identity gets scaffolded by external markers like your title, your team, your office, your compensation, your place in the hierarchy. None of those things are bad. But here's the problem. If you strip all of them away, what's left? If someone asks you who you are without referencing your company, your title, or your income, can you answer clearly? Can you answer it in 2 words? See, most leaders can't. That is not a character flaw. It is a design feature of the system they've been operating inside of for years. The system was never designed to help you develop an identity independent of your role. It was actually designed to make your role your identity because that makes you easier to manage, easier to motivate, and easier to keep. The identity trap is what happens when you mistake the scaffolding for the building. You think the title is you. You think the compensation is you. And when the scaffolding comes down during a transition, during a reorganization, during the moment you decide to do something different, you feel like you're falling apart. But you're not falling apart. The scaffolding is coming down. And what was underneath it was never developed. See, that's the real crisis of a career transition. Not the financial uncertainty, the identity vacuum. Now, here's what actually happens inside a leader when the transition hits. I call it the displacement loop. And I've watched it play out hundreds of times. Stage one, the trigger. Now listen carefully. Something changes. You leave a role, you get restructured, you take a leap, or you start thinking seriously about taking one. And the first thing that happens is not strategic, it's actually emotional. You feel unmoored, not because you do not know what to do next, because you do not know who you are without what you just left. Stage two, the comparison. Boy, this one's very prevalent. You start measuring your worth against what you used to have. You look at the old salary, the old title, the old status, and everything that comes next gets filtered through that comparison. Is this a step up or a step down? Am I growing or am I shrinking? And the answer you give yourself is almost always based on the number, not the meaning. Stage three, the safe retreat. Because the comparison feels threatening, you default to the familiar. You chase the role that looks like the one you left. You negotiate for the compensation that matches what you had, even if the work itself does not light you up. You play it safe, not because safe is smart, because safe is the only thing that calms the identity anxiety. All right, stage four. The cycle repeats. You land somewhere that looks right on paper, but feels wrong in your bones, deep down in your soul. And 3 years later, you're back in the same position, successful by every external metric, privately stuck. That's career quicksand, and the displacement loop feeds directly into it. Every time you make a career decision based on compensation instead of conviction, you sink a little deeper into a life that was built for someone else's scoreboard. See, I want to tell you something from my own life because this is not theoretical for me. Early in my career, I made a move from Sunkist Juice Beverages to an organization that would teach me the operational side of the business. Now, on paper, it looked lateral, maybe even a step down, less prestige, less status, less of the scaffolding that the industry uses to tell you whether you're winning or not. And I can tell you, that decision was not popular. People around me questioned it. The comparison voice in my own head questioned it because the old scorecard said that this was the wrong move. But I was not making the decision for the old scorecard. I was making it from my brand, from the leader I was building, not the title I was protecting. I needed that operational experience to become who I was actually meant to become. And the only way to get it was to let go of the external validation that said I was supposed to keep climbing the obvious ladder. That decision was correct, not because it led to more money, though it did later. It was correct because it was made from conviction, not compensation. It was made from my identity, not image. See, my father, Frank Yopes, understood this in his bones. My dad came to this country from Cuba with nothing. Cornell graduate, pioneered crossover music with Los Yopes, went on to formulate Miller Lite. He could have defined himself by the income, by the corporate success, by the external markers. But he never did. His identity was rooted in something deeper, in what he stood for, in the earned perspective that came from building something real from scratch in a country that did not yet know how to value what he brought to it. Keep going, son, keep going. That is what my dad told me. And it's carried through me in every transitions I've ever faced. Not because it's motivational, because it's a reminder that going matters more than the getting. Before I give you the 5 practices, I want to name the cost because most leaders are aware that something feels off during a transition, but they have never quantified what the identity and money entanglement is, what it actually costs them. Cost number 1, you make decisions from fear, not clarity. When your identity is fused with your income, every career decision is filtered through financial anxiety, and financial anxiety is not strategic, it is survival. You cannot see opportunities clearly when you're operating from survival mode. Cost number 2, you undervalue your actual contribution because you've been measuring your success and yourself by the number. You have no independent framework for understanding what you are actually worth, not your market rate, your real value, that specific combination of experience, perspective, and capability that you bring to any room you walk into. Most leaders in transition have never articulated that outside of a salary negotiation. Cost number 3, you teach the people around you to value the same things you do. Your team, your family, your network. When you lead from compensation, they learn to see you through compensation. And when the numbers change, the way they see you changes too. Not because they're shallow, because you gave them no other framework. Cost number 4, you miss the transition that would actually matter. See, the career move that aligns with who you are, not just what you earn, often looks different from the one the old scoreboard would choose. It might look lateral. It might look unconventional. It might require tolerating a temporary gap between your income and your identity. And if you cannot tolerate that gap, you will never make the move that matters most. See, these costs are real and they compound. Every year you stay fused to the financial identity is yet another year the conviction deficit widens. Here's the practical part. 5 practices. These come directly from the work I've been building across 6 books, 109 redirects, and 30 years of sitting with leaders in exactly this position. Practice 1. Define your brand independent of your role. Can you describe your personal brand in 2 words? Not a paragraph, not a mission statement. 2 words that contain everything essential about who you are as a leader and what you stand for. See, my brand distills to these 2 words: identity enabler. Those words contain everything. Now, if you can't answer that question for yourself clearly, you see, that tells me where your brand development work actually stands and the work that's needed before you begin to transition, not during it. Practice 2. Separate your financial plan from your identity plan. See, you need a financial plan for a transition. Absolutely. We can't dispute that. I'm not telling you to ignore the money. I'm telling you to stop letting the money answer the question of who you are. Build a financial runway that gives you space. Then use the space to make decisions from conviction, not desperation. The financial plan protects the transition. It doesn't define it. Practice 3. Name what you're actually afraid of. See, most leaders in transition say they're afraid of financial instability. When I sit with them and we go deeper, the real fear is almost never about the money. It's about being seen differently. It's about losing status. It's about the question they cannot answer at the dinner party when someone asks, "So what do you do?" Name the real fear, because the real fear is always an identity fear. And identity fears do not get solved by bigger paychecks. They get solved by deeper conviction. Practice 4. Audit your 4 workplace fears. Now, I've identified 4 fears that operate in every professional environment. The fear of not being valued, the fear of being seen as different, the fear of hidden agendas and political maneuvering, and the fear that you cannot be yourself at work. Now, during a career transition, all 4 of these intensify because the structures that were managing them, your title, your team, your established relationships, are no longer there. Audit which of these 4 fears is driving your transition decisions. I promise you, at least one of them is operating right now. And practice 5. Lead the transition from identity, not income. See, this is the core of everything I teach. The individual defines the business, not the other way around. And the individual defines the career transition, not the other way around. Your next move should be built on who you are, what you were paid. It's on what you stand for, not what you left behind. On the leader that you're becoming, not the title you are protecting. See, this requires conviction, and I mean real conviction. The willingness to tolerate the temporary discomfort of a gap between your income and your identity while you rebuild from the foundation up. See, most people do not do that. They will chase the number. They will go chase the title. They will grab the safe option. They will stay in the displacement loop. But you are watching this video, which means something in you knows there's a different way. So here's where we're at. Money and identity get tangled during career transitions because the system trained you to measure yourself by your compensation. The identity trap keeps you fused to the scaffolding. The displacement loop keeps you chasing the old scorecard. And career quicksand pulls you deeper every time you make a move from fear instead of conviction. The way out is not a better salary negotiation. The way out is a deeper relationship with who you actually are. Your brand, your values, your conviction, the thing that stays when the title, the team, the corner office, and the numbers all change. What was conditioned out of you can be reclaimed. That's not a slogan. That's the work. And I've been doing this work with Fortune 500 companies now for years. If you're watching this and you're in a transition right now or feel that one's coming, or you're just getting started to notice that your identity and your income have been fused for longer than you realize, I want to give you a starting point. I've built a free earning conviction assessment. It's a diagnostic tool that helps you see where your identity is actually anchored right now, not where you think it is, where it actually is. It takes about 35 minutes, but it'll give you more clarity about the conviction deficit in your own leadership than most programs deliver in 10 weeks. It is completely free, and you can find the link at theglennyopis.com. The link is also in the description. Start there, see what it reveals, and if you want to go deeper after that, the Conviction Institute, the courseware, the method, the community, all of it is built right there for you. But the self-assessment is where the work begins. Now, if this video resonated with you, share it with someone who's navigating a transition right now, someone who actually needs to hear that their identity is not their income. Subscribe if you want more of this. I'm going to keep going deeper on conviction, on identity, on what it actually means to lead as yourself in a world that was not designed for that. The individual defines the business, not the other way around. I will see you in the next one.